Don't you just hate it when you walk into a meeting room space and it has the wrong equipment in there? Maybe you need a large screen or a video camera or maybe a touch screen to be able to collaborate. In this week's episode, I'm going to show you how you can use your Teams panel that sits on the outside of the room to view what equipment is in the inside of the room. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mo Mondays. In this week's episode, I am going to show you how you can use your Teams panel that sits on the outside of the room, the one that you use to book meeting rooms with. The Teams panel that sits on the outside of the room where you can actually view what equipment is in the inside of the room. Man, it's hard to say all of that. But before we get cracking and before we're able to actually see what equipment is inside of the room, we need to set up our room resource account to make sure that we've updated it with what equipment is actually installed inside of that room. And in order to do that, the first thing that you would need to do is get into the admin center. Now, we're not talking about the Teams admin center. This one actually is the Exchange admin center. So I'm presuming you've already got a room set up. You've got a room resource account. You head over to admin.exchange.microsoft.com and that will get you straight into the admin Exchange center. So let me go ahead and just pop that up on the screen and show you exactly what it looks like. So here across, you'll see I have the Exchange admin center. I'm signed in already. And on the left-hand side of the page is a bunch of options, of course. The one that we are looking for is the resources one across here. So you go ahead and you select resources. Now, of course, here within the room resource, you have the ability to kind of add new room resources if you want. Man, I can't speak today, but I'm going to keep trying. You do have the ability to add a new room resource account if you wanted to, and there are many ways to create room resource accounts, but you'll see across here, we already have a bunch. So I'm going to go ahead and pick mine, which is Mo Khalifa's Office X30. Now, across here on the right-hand side, it gives you a little pop-up per se. And there's a bunch of things that you can do, a whole bunch of different settings that you can add. For example, you can change things like the booking delegate settings, delegation, others, if you want to have mail tips up there, which are always useful. And, maybe we'll do another episode talking about mail tips. If I go to general, the one we're really looking at is this one down here, which is additional information. But just before we move into that, let me go ahead and just select manage resource details. Now, of course, here you're able to change the room resource email address if you wanted to. You can also add the capacity in here. So if your room has sensors which detect the amount of people in, now some cameras also have the capability to do that. When you add the capacity inside of the room resource account, it will then allow you to kind of set max resource and pop up inside of the room if you've hit that capacity as well. You can of course add your department and your company and any address book policies as well. For us to set up the room equipment list, we need to scoot down here where we've got additional information. So you go ahead, select additional information, you let that load up, and then you have the ability. Now you'll see in true Blue Peter fashion, I've already done it across here, but I'll show you how easy it is. For example, if I know this room is wheelchair accessible, I can go ahead and select the tick across the top there. Mine is on the ground floor, so absolutely yes, it's wheelchair accessible. Now you do have the ability to add tags as well. So in my case, I've added things like a collaborative room if you want to have a open space, or if you want to have brainstorming, or whatever tag that you want to add, you can absolutely add here. If your room has additional kind of audio capabilities, maybe you're using a DSP as an example, or you're using additional table mics or extender mics, you can actually add what you have across in there. For the display, in my little office, I have a small touchscreen front of display that I use, but in a normal environment, a normal meeting room space, you may add something like a 75-inch display or a plasma display. I don't know if anyone uses plasma anymore, but a projector as an example, or dual displays, or touchscreen, whatever you want, whatever's inside of that room, you can absolutely put in there as well. And then of course the video device name, in my case, X30, but if you're using a Crestron, a Logitech, a Yealink, whatever it may be, you can pop that in there. Sometimes, as rule of thumb, sometimes it's easier not actually putting down the OEM or the model name across there, because the standard person that wants to look at room equipment might not know what a Poly X30 is. So you can put down saying video equipped, or audio only, or Teams phone across there as well. Once you've done, you go ahead and you hit the save button. As soon as you hit that save button, that updates the room resource account, and that part is now done. So now you've set up the room resource account, you've gone in, you've added your tags, you've added, what equipment is actually inside of the room. The next thing to do is actually go ahead and configure your Teams panel. Now, unfortunately, I'm not able to dial in and do screen recording of my Teams panel. So I've kind of gone old school and I've taken a whole bunch of pictures to show you what happened. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop that here on the stage for you. Now, if you have the latest updates on the Teams panel, hopefully it will look something like this, where you have the ability for you to be able to kind of check in. You've got a QR code where you can actually just scan to reserve that room. And then, of course, if you have selected room equipment, you'll get the logo, which is highlighted by the arrow saying room equipment. Now, if you don't see that part, it's because we've not set it up. So let me show you exactly how you would go ahead and set that up. The first thing you want to do is on the bottom right-hand corner, you'll notice the settings cog. Go ahead, select that settings cog. In fact, before I show you what the settings cog does, let me show you what the room equipment button does. So if you did tap that room equipment button, you'll see across here what's actually inside of the room, like I popped across on the room resource account. Anyway, let's go ahead and select that settings button. If you select that settings button, the first thing that you'll see is the about screen and of course device settings. Now, if you go ahead and you select device settings, at that point, it will ask you for a password. By default, the username tends to be admin. Your password tends to be the last 6 digits of the serial number, unless you have changed it. Most OEMs, when you're using a touch panel or you're using a Teams panel, should I say, will force you to change and create a brand new password the first time that you log into it. So let's assume that you hit the device settings, you've entered your username and password. You are then given this setting across here, these options. So the one that I'm looking for is admin settings. You go ahead, you select the admin settings across there. Then you're given a whole bunch more options. Now, this menu may look different depending on which OEM or manufacturer you are using. So it may look different for Crestron, it may look different for Poly, it may look different for Logitech or Yealink as well. But essentially, what we are looking for is the panel app settings. As soon as you hit that, it pops up another little button. You go ahead and you select that button across there, and then you're in that familiar Teams admin settings that we're used to seeing on MTR on Android or MTR on Windows as well. Now, as tempted as you may be to go ahead and change wallpapers and things, you can do that if you want, of course. But the setting that we're looking for is the meetings button. You go ahead, you select the meetings button, and bam, you are given a whole range of different options. Now, if you haven't selected things like release room, if no one checks in, to actually have that check-in button, in here you have the ability for you to go ahead and select it. I've decided against it. Just because, if I have a meeting in there, I don't want it to kind of release the room because it's a demo environment. Now, you'll notice highlighted by the arrow, we have showroom equipment. Now, normally that's switched off. Excuse me. Go ahead, select the showroom equipment. And while you're in there, you can go ahead and select things like allow room reservations by QR code and extensions and allow early checkout and stuff. That's what I did. I got in there, saw the new options. I was like, wow, I'm going to go ahead and select all of them. So feel free to go in there and select the rest of them. But for us, it's as easy as going to show room equipment. As soon as you've done that and you've backed out of everything, hopefully you will now see that room equipment button on the bottom left-hand corner. And as soon as you go ahead and you select that, you are now going to be able to see the room equipment that's inside of that room. And it's just a display only. There's no kind of interaction. You can't click these, but it will show you what's inside of the room. So everything that I put in that room resource account is now showing up across here as well. So again, if you have customers that you've deployed Teams panels to, very easy for you to go into the Exchange Admin Center, insert exactly what equipment is inside of that room. And then, of course, while you're walking past the room, as an example, or you're about to book a room, even if it's ad hoc, you can go ahead and select that room equipment button and get a list of what's inside of that room. So no more walking into a room and being like, man, this room isn't the room that I wanted. I don't have the correct equipment. Now there's no excuses. Now you're able to hit that room equipment button and see what's in there. As always, folks, please do like, subscribe, and comment down below on what you would like to see next. With that in mind, I shall hopefully see you guys next week. Ciao.